it's my strong opinion that any third-party review is strong. Personally, we leverage Google reviews. I love that. People have already done their research before they've reached out to you, right? So they've kind of made a decision whether or not they're going to work with you before you even had a discussion about them. So basically, you're trying to create momentum in the marketplace, or you're trying to create a flywheel, right? You've got the systems in place, you've got your brands in place, things are clicking, you're driving sales, and it becomes a wheel, right? Which is fantastic. So I think that's the ultimate goal. But you really have to identify the problem you're solving and why they should work with you. And you need to be able to articulate that quickly, or they're going to tune you out. You're done.
Welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast with Zac Palmer, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Now, today's guest is a seasoned leader and communication strategist whose work has helped some of the most complex organizations in the country to cut through the noise and communicate with impact. Adam Levin is the CEO of Information Experts, an award-winning strategic communication firm he's led for over 3 decades. His mission? To turn information chaos into clarity. And he's done that for government agencies, associations, and growing companies through powerful storytelling, design, and digital strategy. He's also the co-founder of neXco National, a relationship-driven business networking community, and a former founding president of Loudoun County's Chamber B2B Lead Share Group. Adam doesn't just build brands, he builds movements of meaningful connection and measurable growth. So if you're a business leader looking to stand out, simplify your message, and expand your influence, this episode is going to hit you right between the eyes. So Adam, welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast, my friend.
Zac, thank you. That was a hell of an introduction. Thank you. I'm going to do my best to try to live up to the hype, but no promises.
You're going to be fantastic. I'm excited to have you here today. Now, I always like to start with this question. And I do it because I think it reveals a lot about who somebody really is. I'm curious, what does growth mean to you right now in this season of your life?
That's a great question, Zac. So for me, growth is both personal and professional, right? I think it's the same, right? Because who you are, it's who you are 24/7. So being authentic, showing up for your personal relationships, all your business clients, helping them achieve growth. And so like on a high level, like a business growth, I'd like to see a 20% revenue increase, but more importantly, I just turned 60. So I want to work with people that I want to work with, and conversely, right? Because everyone's had that engagement where, you did it for the money, and frankly, you both don't like each other, right? So that really doesn't work. At the end, it doesn't work out very well. So I think it's growth means delivering results for my clients, making them successful, and then making sure we're achieving results, but we're both frankly having a good time doing it, right? So I think that's super important. And then on a personal side, I've really tightened my network and really focusing and putting all my energy into a handful of really strong relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Well, first of all, happy birthday.
I just had it. It was in February, but
it's still a major milestone, right? We'll call it.
It was 60 when I was hoping I was going to mature, but I kind of missed it. So
yeah, I think
at
that's
this point
men.
I was going with it.
I think most women would say that's men in general. I don't know that we ever really mature. Maybe sometimes I regress.
I thought it was going to happen along the way, but it never did.
Yeah. And I think milestones, birthdays, those decades are the ones that we should just celebrate all year anyway. So we'll call it
exactly.
So I love what you said about growth on 2 different levels. Like the business front, it's finding the right people to work with, where it's a mutually enjoyable relationship that is also simultaneously producing the results you want. Exactly. And then, on a personal level, it's now about focusing on maintaining and nurturing the relationships, the highest value relationships in your life. And I know I always think about the the seasonality. I mean, you've got a few years on me, but I think about the seasonality of life and all those major milestones and how my perspectives and wants and needs and desires have shifted so dramatically. And as an example, I'm, much like you, I don't think about growth in any one area. It's a constant view of all different areas of life, from health to wealth and business and our relationships, which can be parenting, friendships, our intimate relationships, and even on to spirituality. And I know for me that one of the ways I'm pursuing growth is constant, never-ending improvement, and a lot of that comes through education. I'm always absorbing new information. Taking opportunities to listen to books, send myself to live and virtual events. I mean, anything that I can do to either help anchor an existing pattern, something I know that works, and maybe get it from a different perspective, or learn a whole new thought process or idea altogether. And for me in this season of life, like I know a big focus is freedom, and more specifically time freedom. Like my kids are at that stage where, I did the turn and burn thing where it was, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, 10 years straight. And now more than ever, I want that time back so I can be spending it with my kids. How do you, how do you go about nurturing those relationships? And this might seem like a ridiculously simple question, but I know it's something that for me, particularly in the professional world, has become a greater focus lately, because I really value really great, strong relationships. And I haven't always historically been as great about the maintenance part. It's like,
well, I
somebody
think
great thing, but
it gets back to being authentic and being honest, right? So I personally get a lot of energy from meeting new people, but also be honest. Hey, can I help this person professionally, personally? And if I can't, can I introduce them to someone that can? And then having enough introspection to say, you know what? I like Zac, but I don't know if I can help him. I'm going to recommend it, but we're going to spend our energies elsewhere. Or I can't. Zac and I are hitting it off. I think this would be a great relationship to foster. So I think that's for me. Like I'm pretty, I'm old, so I can pick. Within 10 minutes, I know whether I'm going to be able to help someone or whether I'm going to hit it off. So I think that's super important. Is about just hey, can I help this person? And do we like each other?
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. I mean, there's nothing dumber than running the wrong direction enthusiastically. It's like you said before, it's one thing to take on new business, and sometimes we do that from a place of scarcity, or we at least maybe in the past. And ultimately you learn that it's never going to create that long-term relationship that you want. I'm curious too, like you talk a little bit more about the like your overall relationship dynamics. Like, do you have a and this might sound really, what's the word I'm looking for? Like binary when it comes to discussing the nature of relationships. But I think if we don't have a plan, a system, a process to support any part of our life, then the probability of follow through and being successful in any one of those areas is low. So what I've been doing is actually working on creating those accountability systems for myself to ensure that I am reaching out to people that are more important to me. What are some of the things that you've implemented so that you are able to maintain consistency with nurturing both your personal and professional relationships and staying,
Absolutely. So again, I think I'm all about authentic, just being authentic, and also, can you be brutally honest with clients, friends, and have that conversation, right? I think that's most important, right? Because that's where growth's going to happen, right? And you're going to find out exactly, hey, this is my observation. What do you think? And getting that candid feedback and having those difficult conversations, whether on any level, right? So a lot of times we'll audit, we'll look at their existing communications, right? Their website, their brand, their message, and you have to be able to be comfortable with that. Say, Zac, you know what? I don't like your background. I do like your background, but but you have to be comfortable with saying that, so you can cut right to it. So I think having that being able to have direct feedback, both personally and professionally, is huge. And then you're able to receive it too, right? And then also separating the issue and not attacking anybody personally.
Yeah, oh no, I love that. I think that's those are two things that I took from that. There are things that I keep in mind constantly when I'm consulting with a particular client. One is the relationship dynamics, and that's coming from a place of transparency and that willingness to call out those present pain points. Now, what makes a really effective communicator, I believe, is we have to have the fortitude, the wherewithal, the desire, the willingness to say the things that most people won't say. And I think that frankly makes a really great friend. I think it makes a really great business leader, because instead of pacifying the things that people are struggling with, we're bringing it to the forefront of their attention, because if it doesn't change, it's not going to enhance their life in any way. So I think that's a great example of a leader. And then what makes them more receptive to it, to your point, is, it's not what we say, but more importantly, how we say those issues. Like, it's attack the problem, not the person.
Absolutely, because you don't want to personal. It's not you don't want to personalize anything, right? Because typically, if you attack someone, what's going to happen? They're going to get defensive, right? And then you're not addressing the issue.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of that opportunity is created by creating the right relationship dynamics and establishing the appropriate standards and expectations early on, right? Like,
absolutely.
If we don't set the stage for how we are going to communicate from early in our relationship development, then the probability of there becoming a future disconnect is significantly greater, and that's how those things can start to falter. So talk a little bit about, what I would love to hear, Adam, is, how did you get from where you are? Well, talk a little bit about where you started and how it brought you to where you are today.
Okay,
what did that journey look like?
So the journey, I won't bore you, but I was very fortunate. Went to business school. It was, this was early in the 80s, so it was affordable and you could put yourself through school.
Yeah.
Got out of school and worked as a selling logistics and freight, which was a great, learning grit, because you're banging on, you're literally hanging out on loading docks, right? And hanging out with warehouse people. It's not if you're thin skinned, this is not the job for you. So that was great training. And also I was very successful. I got promoted to VP of sales and marketing, and I'm like 26, 27. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Yeah. I'm just cranking out. And they said, you know what, we're going to launch this. We need a brand. We need a website. We need sales decks. We need everything. And I'm 20, I think 26, 27. I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure this out, right? So I did it, and I fell in love with the process. I said, like, literally, we created the brand. I created a website. I created a sales deck. I just created everything, like from an idea to showing up. I said, this is fantastic, right? I had the folders, the business cards, the webs. So I was super pumped, and I said, this is what I want to do with my life. So that's how and that's how I started. And at the time, my ex-wife went into business with her, and we started Information Experts. It was both training and marketing, and I started the Marcom group of Information Experts, which is now it's 100% all marketing communications. But that's how the journey started. I fell in love with the process. And the ability to create was just super powerful for me.
I love that on numerous levels. I mean, that resonates with me personally, because I took over a business when I was 19 years old, had no formal business schooling, education, anything, and not only that, it was a business that was in massive debt and doing very little revenue. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff the hard way. And
best teacher.
It was, yeah, it was. Although I wouldn't recommend it of anybody. There could be potentially faster ways to do it, which I learned later on, which is why I got into consulting. It's like, if I can help people, pay for speed, right? It's like, why pay the dumb tax if you don't have to? But I found a way, and the main point was, I thought I was in love with the industry that I was in, which was the fitness and wellness industry. But over that process of building and turning around the business, I started loving business development, which is what brought me into consulting and developing leadership and sales tip teams and so on. So, but one thing you said, I'm really, really curious about, because you're 26 years old. So, this is 34 years ago. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, AI has made my life so much easier. I mean, the
Hmm.
amount I'm able to get done and having the ability to storyboard and ideate and just have it create certain things, even if it's basic frameworks around stuff that I'm not even saying how to put together. There's countless different use cases, right? 34 years ago, we didn't have those tools and resources.
No,
So,
and again, I'm way older than you. When I went to college, there was no internet.
yeah. So this is what I mean. So
Like
like,
we were doing reports on a typewriter, right?
yeah.
So
Dude, I remember going to my parents' business at first when I was a little kid, and they're printing out the financial statements, and it was the printer that had the little wheel, you know, it had to have the
yeah,
paper
yeah,
where the dots aligned with it and stuff. Like, and I mean, I think, but this is my point is I think about this stuff today is, I had access at that time to more resources. The internet was
Mhm.
starting to burgeon, but I still was looking for other experts. I mean, at 26 years old, what I'm really curious about, and here, there's actually, this is a two-part question is how did you do that? Because like that's a major undertaking, and to have to build out basically the entire marketing and sales processes, let alone the cohesion between the two.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Um,
yeah, I don't know, it could be 26, 27. I think it was just you don't know what you don't know, right?
yeah,
So you say screw it. You just dive in and kind of
yeah,
throw it out. And also, frankly, the bar was low, right? Because there was nothing, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is what I came up with, and like, oh, this is cool, right? So I think that was just, but no, I don't know. It was
Yeah, no, that
literally,
actually is a great answer, though. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't know what I didn't know, so I just started doing, and it ended up working, right? Like,
right,
that's great.
exactly.
So, what I would love to have you unpack is you've been in this industry for 30 years now, right? 3 decades.
All right.
What you were doing 30 years ago, think I can say with relative certainty, is probably a hell of a lot different than what you
Yeah,
are
it's
doing
not even. It's two different
today.
worlds.
The game has changed completely. I mean, I know
Yes.
like, and some things have come full circle because now they become underutilized mediums like, direct
Mhm.
mail and things like that. But talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of, the commonalities, the best practices in marketing sales when you were first getting started, and what that's evolved to today, and how your perspective has shifted. And maybe you can share some insights along the way of, what some of our listeners can be doing to either best analyze what they're doing at present or level up their game in the process.
Okay, so I'm going to flip the question. I think
Shoot.
it has gone full circle, right? I
Hmm.
think that for me, there's nothing better than having a conversation.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think everyone they hide behind emails or they'll send you a text. I'll tell you a quick funny story about along this. So I have two boys, and they're in their 20s now. But my father would send them money like for their birthday, and I said, my dad, like, you better thank him.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
would be like, "Oh, great! I'll send him a text." And my dad's older than me, right? And I'm like, "Do you like getting money?"
Yeah,
Of course,
exactly.
Dad. I love getting money. Well, if you send them a text, I guarantee you're not getting any other checks. You better
Yeah.
pick up the phone and call him.
Yes. Yeah. There's power. Hmm.
Exactly. So just
Hmm.
having the power of the conversation, that getting through the clutter and just, hey, what are we trying to accomplish? What does success look like to you? How can I
Hmm.
help you? And having that conversation, I think to me, that's everything, right?
Yeah. Number one, pick up the damn phone.
Pick up the phone, have a conversation, or
Yeah.
or jump on a Zoom call, but
Yeah.
don't hide behind emails.
Mhm.
It really bothers me when people do that.
So talk to me about what are some of the best practices? Where are things moving? I mean, behind you, you've got like, you guys are obviously developing the high level strategic plans. It's web
Right.
design, it's the graphic design, different campaigns, media management, production. Like, how has the marketing landscape evolved? And what are maybe some of the most the newest trends that you're seeing that I'll either think about it this way. Like I love the old analogy. You've probably heard this interview. It was somebody was interviewing Wayne Gretzky, and they were like,
Right.
what makes you the best in the world? I mean, and statistically, he was the best in the world. He goes, it was very simple, but it's poignant. He's like, most skaters, most hockey players, they skate to where the puck is.
Yes, he
I
wants to
skate
skate
where
where
the
it's going to
puck is
go.
going.
Right.
Exactly. So where are things going? What are you seeing, and how can people best be prepared for what's coming? Like what's changing?
Yeah, I think what's changing, especially now with you mentioned AI and the power of the internet, is that people have already done their research before they've reached out to you, right? So they've kind of made a decision whether or not they're going to work with you before you've even had a discussion about them. So I think you need to, I think that the old, classically trained, outline your features and benefits of your product or service. I think that's gone, right? Not that's gone, you still need to understand that, but you really have to identify the problem you're solving and why they should work with you. Period. And you need to be able to articulate that, and you need to be able to articulate that quickly, or they're going to tune you out. You're done.
Yeah.
I think the speed of, I think the requirement to communicate your value significantly quicker than ever before. I think that is key right now.
Yeah, goldfish. Like, I mean, people are more distractible than ever before today.
Yeah, and I tell all my clients, like, people hit your website, you have like 2 to 7 seconds to get your message across.
Oh, literally. It's such a powerful and simple rule, and the way that websites were conventionally built, and still are in a lot of cases, is not going to catch anybody's attention and keep them there. So you're right, spot on. It's like, 2 to 7 seconds in order to tell them, like, to really get them identifying with that particular problem and encourage them and invite them to continue to read on. What I'm curious about too, though, is, that's one thing when they're there, they're doing the research. But what about, where do you go about building the brand identity today? And I think a lot of this, again, comes back to that first thing you said, and there's so much wisdom in this. And I think it's something that's so often overlooked. And for any of the early stage entrepreneurs that are listening to this call, one challenge that I know I've coached people through time and again is exactly what you said, is it's getting really clear on who you are, who is your ideal client, what is the primary problem that you are solving for them, because so many entrepreneurs are very heart-centered people, and in many cases they also have expertise that expands across context, and what they end up saying is, I can help everybody with all things.
Right? That's not true.
Right, exactly. No. So we don't want to be the jack of all trades. We want to be the expert in that one thing. But a lot of this internal resistance comes from, I believe, this desire to help. So foundation is critical in terms of identifying that primary problem and who you're solving it for. And then once that foundation is in place, how are you best determining what are going to be the most appropriate channels? Where do you focus first? Is it building on brand identity? Is it brand marketing? Is it starting to create funnels? Or is it going to be different in every case? Like, what are some different
in every case, but also on a branding perspective, you're going to have specific objectives for your organizational brand versus your personal brand, and how you're going to leverage both of them.
Interesting. Talk a little bit more about that. What would that look like for somebody? Maybe you have a specific client you can think of that, might be a good example from a story or something along those lines.
Super. So, like, from an organizational brand, like, my organization is information experts, right? But information experts isn't just me. We have a whole team, right? So when I'm presenting a solution for our organization, I'm presenting the team. I'm emphasizing the organizational brand. Okay, so that's about information experts. Like, for example, we hit it off, and I was focused more on my personal brand. I was like, hey, this is my, I've been around for 30 years. I've had multiple businesses. I've had success and failures. So now I'm interesting as a personal brand to you. So you're interviewing Adam Levin for your podcast and not my organization.
Right. Yeah, that makes complete sense. So what are some of the things that people should be considering as they are establishing the two? Because I don't know, I think a lot of thought goes into, well, at least I hope, a lot of thought goes into establishing the brand identity as the business. But one thing that could be potentially overlooked is establishing your brand as an individual. And then also, how do you create synergy between the two? What does that look like?
A great question. So I think number one, it comes down to trust, right? The individual trust your organization and trust you personally. Do they trust that you're going to deliver for them? That's most important. So I think that's number one. And Sorry, I lost. What was you had a bunch of great questions. What was the second part of the question?
Oh, no problem at all. I mean, really, it just comes back to like, what is the synergy between the personal brand and the business brand? And how do you create that link between the two?
Great question. Okay,
Yeah.
so from a personal brand, like I'm representing, I have Information Experts, which is my agency, and I have neXco National, which is my virtual business networking community.
Mm-hmm.
And depending, like I'm going to reach out to, my initial outreach is going to be on a person-to-person level, right? And then I'm going to, depending on the conversation, I'm going to recommend which community they should engage with. So my initial outreach is from a personal branding perspective, but then I'm going to introduce them to the respective organization.
Cool. And talk a little bit about, starting to create that personal brand. Like, what does that mean to you? And what are some of the things that, for the audience that they can or should be considering or potentially implementing? Like, is it defining what your values are, how you show up, your character traits? Like, what goes in your mind into creating that personal brand? And I think that, and again, this is one of those things, like if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. People are like, oh, I just show up. I am who I am. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. But what creates integrity is consistency. What
Correct.
creates integrity is doing the things that you say that you're going to do, asking the question, like, is this right? Is this the right thing to do? But for you, like, what goes into ensuring there's clarity on that personal brand and then maintaining continuity?
So great question. So everyone's going to identify, everyone's going to determine, what your values, your characteristics are, who you are, and how you're going to show up, right? Being consistent. Are you trustworthy? Do you have integrity, right? Are you going to do things in the best interest of the client? Are you only going to do things for money, right? Where are you, right? So that's your track record, right? And like you said earlier, that may change over time, right? In your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, right? Those are all different people. But at the end of the day, you got to say, okay, this is who I am. This is what I can do for you, or I can't. And also for me personally, I get it. Like I'm from the Northeast. Sometimes I come across sometimes as abrasive, and I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's okay, but that's who I am, and I'm honest. That's who I am, right? So I'm going to present myself. I'm type A. I want to get stuff done, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. What I like about that though is, one of my old mentors, he used to say this, and you just said it, but differently. He goes, what is marketing? It's attracting those you want and repelling those you don't. And
Absolutely.
a part of that is them buying into you, the person. And there's so much power in polarity. Instead of trying to be, the person that everybody loves, be the person that lives, speaks, and embodies your values, your characteristics. And what you'll end up creating is a much stronger community, because now you're not the United States, and you are, you are that independent country that knows what they are. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the people don't want to hang out with you. You shake hands and say thank you. Right.
Yeah. I say that flippantly, but I feel like that's where the United States has become. It's like, we were very established with a very clear set of guidelines and values and who we were as a country and what we represent. And now it's become, let's try and make everybody happy. And because of it, nobody's happy. And it's,
you can't make everyone happy.
No, you can't. But I think it's a great example of why it's so important and actually valuable in marketing actually in business in general, to speak in a manner where you are going to have groups of people that don't like you, and be okay with that. But even more importantly, you're going to have the people that love you, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What I would love to hear you talk a bit more about is, I would love to hear either end of the spectrum. Okay. Actually, both sides. I'd love to hear a story about, maybe a client that was a pain, that didn't bite, that didn't listen and some of the challenges that it created, maybe where that led them today. And then also what an ideal client relationship looks like, and what implementation and proper growth will come from, leveraging the expert, and just from your perspective.
Okay. Lots of stuff there. You got.
Yes.
I love your questions. They're all multi-layered. Okay. So first of all, we have specific recommendations. This is what's worked in the past, and this is what doesn't work. And typically, if we make a recommendation and then the client chooses not to do it, and we're not right all the time, but a lot of times, we'll say something will happen, and then it happens, and then the client gets pissed at us. We're like, okay, it's not going to work, right? There's a conflict, or we didn't do a very good job of communicating why we recommended this path. But ultimately, if you guys aren't aligned, the relationship's going to end.
I think that's an important thing to highlight too, is so much of marketing is testing, right? It's like a lot of people expect to bring on an expert and it's like, okay, I'm going to hire them in month one, I'm going to have a home run. But
No,
very rarely are you going to have that home run. I mean, you have to build momentum, we got to spool up the flywheel, but we have to test a variety of different things. I mean, that could be the actual marketing channels, the actual tools, the resources, right? So I love that you say that, because there's a couple things. Is one, don't expect the home run when you work with any organization right away. Like, things are going to, in most cases, take some time. And two, they're going to take a little bit of trial and error and testing. We've got to figure out do more of what works and less of what doesn't, fundamentally.
Exactly. And the cliche in marketing is, we're going to give you 10 great ideas.
Yeah.
5 of them are going to work. 5 of them aren't going to work, but we don't know which ones are which.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you said something really important too, and this is, I think, where a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot, is by very simply setting the appropriate expectation at the beginning of the relationship and clarifying that, like, look, this isn't in all likelihood going to be a home run. We might, sure, but in all likelihood, we're building a long-term relationship, and as time goes on, we can leverage the power of data to make better decisions versus just, leaning off anecdotal evidence and throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So, what's the other end of the spectrum when things get humming along? Like, how does the focus shift from your perspective? Is it now about, usually in the early stages of business, urgency, we're trying to get more leads in, then we're trying to get a better quality of lead. What happens when you are moving into scaling? Is it now more like omnipresence? Are we trying to get on more channels with the same message? Now we've got it down.
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier, which I love, Jim Collins' flywheel. So basically, you're trying to create momentum in the marketplace, or you're trying to create a flywheel, right? You've got the systems in place, you've got your brands in place, things are clicking, you're driving sales, and it becomes a wheel, right? Which is fantastic. So I think that's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
So to create that wheel.
Tell me a little bit, for our audiences, or like maybe that's in the earlier stages of entrepreneurship. Are there any common places where are the best places to start from a marketing perspective? And I also know that sometimes, let's just assume this is a virtual business, they're service-based, they can serve, work anywhere in the United States, so we're not dealing with like small brick and mortar mom and pop where we're active networking in the local community is going to be different. I'm talking about something where we're a bit more global, or at least across the states. Is there how does somebody best go about determining where to put their initial energies?
Great question. All right. So I think you put your initial energies where you're going to get a single or double, right? You want to be able to create a past performance. You want to create a success story.
Okay.
Because once you have that success story, you can then leverage it. But you have to get that initial success, right? Whether you have to, you have to do it for free. Who cares, right? The bottom line is you want to get that past performance that you can say, hey, this client had this, this was their challenge, this was our solution, here's the result, and here's the client testimonial. We can do the same for you, and then you leverage that and snowball it.
So one of the most powerful resources in that regard is actually client testimonials. So your suggestion is, instead of people are like, it's great to have a website and all of these things. I mean, it's important, but you don't necessarily want to go to the marketing funnel. You don't necessarily want to be pumping out tons of organic content on social media. No. The first thing is to actually get the wins. And even if you have to do it for free.
You got to get the wins and then the testimonials, because, it's very difficult. No one wants to be the first person.
Yep. Yeah. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. I mean, free, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I mean, even pilot program at a low cost launch, and just communicating that like my number one expectation is to over deliver on this project for you. And my biggest ask is going to be that you provide me with a powerful testimonial when we knock
Yeah,
it
you
out of
want
the
to,
park.
we're gonna deliver on this.
Mhm.
We've established what your expectation is. I want to exceed that expectation, and after we do that, I'd like it would be fantastic if you can give me a Google review.
Awesome, awesome. I'm curious about this too because I know that for when it comes to testimonials, whether leaving a review on Google or Nextdoor or like any of countless different platforms, right?
Right, there's 100 of them, right?
Or even just submitting one to you on email, right? The
Right.
the challenge is, I know at least for me, when I sit down, I have a framework that I take myself through. Even if I'm writing something simple on Yelp about a restaurant I enjoyed,
Mhm.
but a lot of people, I have a business background, right? So is there a really powerful way for people to help position how they would like the client to write the testimonial so it gives the most value? Like, is there a checklist of things that are musts that they should say that will make it even more impactful?
Great question. You got to be careful because
You
you
can't tell
shouldn't
them what
write
to
the
say, right?
reviews for you, right? You
Yeah,
can't tell them what to
exactly.
say.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also very powerful to have it's my strong opinion that any third party review is strong.
Mm, hmm.
And you can have them, we personally, we leverage Google reviews. I love that, right? So
Hmm.
because people can check it and they can go to our website, click on reviews, and they see who's had what kind of experiences previous clients or any current clients have had. So I think that, and it doesn't have to be it could be 2 sentences. That's it. Right? As
Hmm.
long as they see a track record of satisfied clients, I
Hmm.
think that's most important.
Cool, cool. Now, talk a little bit about like, is there a particular what is your major value proposition? What is there a particular industry that you work with or niche that you work with most often, or maybe it's a handful of
Yeah,
industries?
great
Like,
question. So
yeah,
our niche is we work with small, medium-sized businesses and nonprofits that are growing.
okay,
So
okay,
we're good. Once you have you establish some revenue and you want to add fuel to the fire, we're really strong.
okay,
Okay. We
okay.
provide an outsourced marketing solution that should increase your revenue and decrease your costs because we've put together like an outsourced subscription model where you don't need to hire additional marketing folks, right? We can go
Mhm.
in and deliver the results versus you needing to hire people.
Sure, sure. Now, I have to imagine, and I really don't know. One thing I've sat on the board in some nonprofits and done a lot of volunteer work, but I've actually never approached it from a marketing standpoint. I mean, the thing that usually comes to my mind is events and fundraisers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I would love to hear you speak a little bit about the two different tracks, like how your approach to marketing with a nonprofit may be different than a small to medium sized business,
No, no, great question, but
Yeah.
I would say it's not that different. Nonprofit doesn't
Ooh,
mean they don't make a profit. They just have different objectives. Like so, I've worked
right.
with several nonprofits, and they're still identifying who their audience is, and then what the no field do is for each audience. So
Mhm.
typically, a nonprofit, obviously fundraising, right? That's one audience. Uh, they want to communicate their service offering. That's one. They could be hiring people, right? So that'd be
Mhm.
another audience that want to drive applicants, or they have specific events where they want to drive attendance, right?
Mhm.
So you've identified 4 audiences with 4 different objectives.
Mhm. Okay. Now, between the two, and just to keep these in silos for a moment to see if there
Right.
are any unique outliers, um, is there uh, do you have a tendency, is it always balanced, or do you have a tendency to lean more into the problems and the pain from a marketing perspective in one area, and then more future pacing, aspirational, the heaven when you do, the positive outcomes on another? Is it balanced? What does that look like between the
It's another
two?
great question, but it's really dependent on
Market? Hmm.
on the client. Like
Hmm.
I gotta after after we're done here, I'm kicking off a new client and they're launching a new product, new
Okay.
service offer, right? So for them, they have to go to market. So they need a basic go to market strategy
Mm.
to
Mm.
announce who they are, right? So they need a brand, they need a website, they need some basic messaging so they can communicate their value to prospective clients, and they don't have anything, right? So that's a really exciting project for me.
I'm really curious about this. Talk a little bit more about that specific project. You don't name names or anything, of course, but like, so you're saying this is an established business that is launching a new product or service line
Yes.
that's running in tandem. So this is something I've always been curious about is if you're having to build new website, all these new things, it's a pretty what's the like unique division for how do you create that continuity, the different tracks where all of these different products or services can fall under one umbrella, but then also get their own independent representation, if that makes sense.
Great question. So we can spend hours on this. So you got to decide whether it's going to be a line extension of your existing brand, or you're going to spin off and create a new brand.
Okay. Okay. And then, ooh, that, so, I mean, I find this a really, really curious thing. Like, what if, can you give a high level explanation of what that would mean between those two tracks, between whether it's a complement or the spinoff? Like, why would somebody need or want to decide to go one direction or the other?
Okay, well, one, you maybe have, you could potentially sell the same service or product to the same client, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they may want to attract a whole new market, and you might not want to confuse your brand. So therefore, you'd want to create a separate brand and go to market with a separate brand, right? So that's
Gotcha.
one issue. Or or it's similar to what you're already selling, and you can sell to the same clients, and then it could be a sub brand. Again, it's really hard to answer in
So
30 seconds.
biggest things actually then, so what I took, that's actually the great answer though, because the biggest things I took away from you is one, it's either value ladder, like are you offering the what's next product or service because it's already in alignment with that market, or is this new product or service something that still is under the company umbrella but is serving a completely different market, and that actually helps clear. So that's really, really interesting. Let's assume it's the latter, okay? And in a second, we've got just a few more minutes before we start wrapping up. I want to have you unpack that just a little bit. Like if they're creating a new product or service that really needs its own branding, how do you tie the two companies together and ensure that you're pushing people down the right track? I mean, to the right resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And again, it goes back to our earlier conversation, identifying who your ideal client profile is, right? So your ideal client for that product or service, they may be two different clients. And if it's in a line extension, then like you said, it's the next progression of that experience, right? That you want to sell them on it, or it's completely different, and we're going to go with a new brand and start a whole new process with them.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I love that. Those are fantastic answers. Thank you for that. Adam, if you would talk a little bit about, as we wrap up today's episode, like I would love to know, if you could speak a little bit like to what initial conversations look like with you. Like I'm assuming, and it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is you're going to take people through a pretty thorough, deep dive and analysis of their company, their products, their services, what they're currently doing, what they're not doing. I mean, you've got to have a pretty comprehensive understanding of what's going on before you start crafting a plan. Can you talk a little bit about just what that initial stage of starting to work with you looks like, so clients can start to see?
Great question. So I like starting at the end. Like,
yeah.
Zac, you're going to engage us. What does success look like? What are you trying to accomplish?
Okay.
I want X number of podcasts, whatever I want. And then we start from the, okay, this is what success looks like. Let's build a plan towards that.
Okay. So very simply put, start with the end in mind, and then
start with the end in mind. What are we trying to accomplish?
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Well, to our audience, thank you for spending your time with us on the Perpetual Growth Podcast. And a big shout out to Adam Levin for bringing so much value to today's conversation. Adam, where can our listeners either connect with you, learn more about what you're working on?
Absolutely. You can contact me at Adam Levin. You can check out informationexperts.com. My Calendly link is on there. I would love to, have a 15-minute call with you and see where it goes. But yeah, check out informationexperts.com, and my Calendly link is on there as well as my mobile number.
Awesome. So we can find Adam at informationexperts.com, and we'll make sure that we've got that in the show notes for you guys too, so you don't have to search or even type, just click, right? So
you just click, exactly. Or you can go on LinkedIn and find me there as well.
Reduce friction, or LinkedIn. So we got either of those different resources. And again, we'll put both those in the show notes for you guys. Now, if this episode sparked something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Be sure to share it, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review to help us reach even more people on their growth journey. And remember, growth doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. We'll see you next time.